From the kitchen of the cabin, a look at the games that made us who we are in Ben and Steve's Advent Calendar. So here we are. It is December. Hang on a second, just looking at the old calendar.
Great dead air.
17th of December, Steve.
So the reason that we don't put the dates into our shared document is because we're recording them on the day itself, and we only
Exactly.
need to
So
look
you don't
at the
need
calendar.
to. You just need to look at the computer screen, right?
Yeah. But it takes a few seconds. We're not young guys.
I had very slow eye syndrome there.
Yeah, the eyes have to travel to the upper right corner of the screen and then
Lower
focus.
bottom for me because I've got a Windows machine and you've
Whatever.
got a fucking Ponzi Apple shit.
Yeah, but then your eyes have to focus. You have to absorb the information. You have to think about it for a second and then communicate it. That takes time.
Those fucking these whatchamacallits in the brain. Whatchamacallums?
Neurons, I think. Neurons.
Yeah, they're not as snappy as they once were. Back when I was calling people poo bum in the playground. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is not an ableist podcast. So you take as much time as you need to look at the current date for today, which is December 17th.
Exactly. Anyway, we're talking today.
I'm excited about this one.
You should be, because this one causes you to get a level of tumescence that is very rare in a man of your distinguished years. So
and I'm grateful for every centimeter.
Last time I played this,
did you see
game?
Did you see how I worked in a reference to the metric system there? Even though I'm American, I think
it's very good that you adopt the sensible European ways of things.
I've got a hogshead of enthusiasm for the game we're about to talk about today, Ben.
Yeah. I'm excited as 3 bushels.
You cannot fathom my feelings.
Oh, that's very good. That's very good.
Thank you.
It won't be furlong before the audience know what the game is it?
I'm just worried a little bit that I'm going to say something off cover and really stick my foot in it.
Yeah, I mean, I might have to go outside in the yard to calm down and that.
I was going to use yard, so I don't have one.
Anyway, so last time I played this game, I just went, no, it's no good. This is in my top 5 games of all time. It is an absolute...
And it was a play of the game in which that I won, that it was like this sort of...
I've never seen a person, honestly, and I mean this is genuine now, this is not ironic. I saw a sudden sort of shine in your eyes when you realised that you could just do this absolutely epic move and win the game. And when you did it, you had a sort of steely, excited determination, because I think part of you kind of doubted whether what was happening right this second was real. But real it was, Stevie, and you won the great masterwork, I think the best game by these 2 designers, and that's Antiquity.
I'm reliving it now, and I'm actually sweating a little bit. Yeah, it was like transcendent. I felt like I was, entering into my final form or something. And it's just a board game, right? It's just a board game, Ben. Why should I have feelings like that when it's just a board game?
Because, again, it is these things, these abstract concepts that are dreamt up in the mind of someone else, yet when it's done masterfully, right, they can elicit genuine, real emotions into the world. And I think that's part of the reason board games are great, right? Because it seems kind of like magic. Yeah,
and footnote to this episode, I'm pretty sure I kicked John's ass, didn't I?
I think you did, yeah. Well, you won, so of course you did.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit. Don't go into the rules particularly, but talk a little bit about Antiquity.
I want to talk about how I discovered this game and then what it was that grabbed me. So when I first came to Berlin, and we like to say got back into games, but like got back into them with a vengeance, right? Like met the group, started going to the meetup, and then went to Essen for the first time in 2017. I was taking like a lot of recommendations from you and your erstwhile podcast, and just trying to like get a feel for like, what is of the moment, because I was still kind of stuck in, 2008, let's say. Like Dominion to me felt fresh at that time, and it was old by that point. And I was looking through the offerings at Essen 2017, and I flicking through the app that our friend had made, and this game came up, Antiquity, and I thought, that's for me. It's called Antiquity. I should give it a try. But like the box doesn't tell you anything about it. It just like says Antiquity. It has like 2 dates. I don't even remember what they are, that span a period of years that are definitely not in Antiquity.
No, definitely not.
Apparently they were chosen entirely arbitrarily by the designer of the box. Typical for a splatter game, the box doesn't even tell you anything. It's got some like horribly written flavor text, and then the back is completely blank. I mean, the whole box just says like, fuck you,
They feel willful, the Splotter guys, right?
Yeah, they have no interest in like alluring the uninitiated. So I had kind of like forgotten the game other than having mentally bookmarked it, and we walked by their booth, and you said to me, "Oh yeah, it's a Splotter game." These guys are sort of like known to be, indie game publishers, and I sat down for a demo of Antiquity, which wasn't new. They had just like republished it, like fortunately for me, like that year, because I didn't realize how sought after some of their games are at that time. And I sat down and I did the demo, and I'm just like, fuck me. Did they like shrink themselves down like that movie Inner Space, fly into my brain, look around and design a game just for me? Because that's Antiquity. Let's not even talk about the hexagons. And the fact that you have like 2 different maps. I love these games where you have like 2 different boards that interact, right? You've got the sort of the main like countryside board with the hexagonal tiles that fit together, and then you have your personal city board. I love that. I've always loved this about games. It reminds me of the old game Titan, where you fight battles on a separate board. But anyway, any game that has that, I kind of go for. It's so like wickedly difficult. You have to
unremitting, isn't it? This game.
Yeah. You have to play every turn perfectly. The thing is, if you do, it's just so rewarding. I mean, it is a pure strategic experience, and I don't know. It's like it took these guys to do it, because I don't think anybody would have published this game. It's like it's too hard. It's too weird. In a way, it's like too modular or too.
It feels
open-ended.
Like it would have had all that meanness developed out of it, right? And it would have been lesser for it, I think.
Yeah, and it doesn't help you, right? Like it's not obvious what you should do on your turn. The rules, by the way, they're not complicated. So Splotter games, I think they have a reputation for many of them being heavy, but you can learn them very quickly. There aren't that many rules. Like Antiquity, like every turn has these like 10 phases, but they go by rapidly. You just have to make difficult decisions that have consequences, and you have to like grow your little mini civilization, and you have to do the right thing. And if you don't, you could be knocked out of the game effectively. And I know that could be.
I played one game where I didn't build wood, and I was knocked out of the game functionally. I couldn't do anything, basically.
Yeah, and I unfortunately, I think this is the kind of game where you might have to go through that before you figure out like what are some things that you need to be very careful about, because the game absolutely rewards careful, considered play. Like, let's say in that sense, it's like a proper game, and it punishes, or like there's sort of like a lack of like latitude and flexibility for suboptimal play or like grievous mistakes, even at the very early stages. I mean, you can set yourself up for disaster on the first turn, and this is like a thing with these guys. They just don't care. It's a game that actually has a sort of perverse sense of humor, but like totally lacking in empathy. It's actually a little bit satanic, and I love it. I love that it's a modular board. I love that it's got like hidden surprises. I love that it has like famine, like, and pollution, and you have to put graves in your city if too many people die, and there's like hardly any way of avoiding that, and like excess pollution causes more graves, and you have like the countryside and the city board, and you can build additional cities and get additional city boards. Like that's where the sort of game is like, it's like it just goes there. It goes like that step too far, and it's
that wonderful thing.
It's indulgent.
We talked about this in the Concordia episode. I can tell you how to play the game in 10 seconds. You get a building, you choose where to put it on your city board. That's it. And yet from that, the amount of repercussions to those actions are huge. It is simply, so the longer I've been playing games, the more I've sort of understood kind of how games are constructed, especially when you have to write about them. But occasionally you play a game and you just go, how is this seemingly so willfully simple? It's almost taking the piss. There's almost no game here on the face of it. And yet, the minute you start playing it, you are thrust into their world and you have to bat away their absolute evil machinations for the 2.5 hours it takes to play. And once you get to the end of it, as long as you haven't screwed yourself up at the beginning, you get to the end of it and you go, wow, this is the pinnacle, right? This is the pinnacle of this art form.
Yeah, and these like soulless, cruel Dutch fuckers have just like put together, like in the fine tradition of like Dutch art, like that country has produced some of the most brilliant like works of art, like the verisimilitude of Vermeer, Jan Eyck, like turning the art world totally on its head. I don't know. These guys are somehow in that vein. They are not like, they're not marketing this game. They're not like looking for an audience. They're not like trying to be friendly to the player. They are just in it for the total like gameness of the game. And this is, I think, my number one game of all time. I think it really has risen to the top of the list. So I was reluctant to add it to the series that we're doing for the Advent calendar because I wasn't sure like what exactly we were going for. And we started talking about how, well, which games for us are formative. And I only discovered it relatively recently, in the grand scheme of things. And yet as like a pillar of my fascination with this hobby, I think it's got to be unrivaled. I mean, am I going too far to say that there just isn't another game like this?
There is definitely not another game like it, and there are very few games, I think, that evoke the kind of emotion that Antiquity evokes. And as you say, there is a mischief there, and there is a playful disregard of the player that is so refreshing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to respect it, because I think there's a lot of, I don't know how to put it, desperation in the sort of board gaming world, because like board game publishers are trying to sell product, right? And the designers are trying to create games that they can pitch, and they're trying to like fit their game to the market and like understand what's going to appeal, and and that makes total sense, right? Like, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you try to design games that people would actually enjoy? Why wouldn't you try to like design games that are going to sell, that are going to make money? These guys don't do any of that. They do not care. And
no,
they're in like a kind of category all their own for that fact. I think it's like actually a bit surprising how much you like this game, though. I don't think it's like an obvious choice for you if I read your taste correctly.
I like some Splotter games. I like Food Chain Magnate, and I love another game that's coming up on this list in a couple of days. I find some of their games willful, heavy, opaque in a way that I just don't get along with, but I'm a sucker for Civ games, and this feels like it's coming out of a Civ tradition. And also, sometimes, even when things are not within your normal wheelhouse, you just can't deny the brilliance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we often conclude these episodes with a question about like recommendation. Can I recommend this game? This is one of these games where you almost have to be me. I don't know. Have you been listening to my opinions about board games for the last, like, how long have I been appearing on your show? A year, 2 years? Probably longer than I think. I discovered this game and I discovered this publisher at the same time, and I just decided I wanted to buy all their games. I wanted to play all their games, and I'm obviously something of a collector. I lost my entire D&D collection in the floods of 10, 15 years ago. We've talked about that. My new sort of reprise of that, pack rat instinct has been to piece together the complete Splotter collection. I have all of their games. I don't have like a few of the little tiny ones that they produced at the very early stages of their career, but all like the big ones, the boxy ones. I have all of them, and I wouldn't say like every single one of them is an absolute smash hit, but there are like themes that run through them, and it's exactly this kind of like I don't know, insouciance maybe is the best way of putting it. I should maybe not harp too much on the cruelty toward the player, because there's also like the reward for correct play, and the sense of humor and the cleverness, and I think they're actually quite, I don't want to say unsung heroes of the gaming world, but like they're really like designers. A lot of their concepts seem to find their way into other games, and they're just like years ahead of their time. Like Roads and Boats is like 20 years old, and yet you see Roads and Boats in Le Havre. And like the auction mechanism of the Great Zimbabwe, I think was also quite innovative. And I've heard of like other games that like they steal from Indonesia and they've stolen from antiquity, and you might get like a boiled down essence of it that's kind of as good, but you play a Splotter game and you are absolutely going to like the source of some of the most ingenious masterminds of board game creativity that this hobby and this century has had to offer.
Thank you for listening to this show and indulging our overweening nostalgia. If you would like to support the show, you can do that by going to patreon.com/5G4D. And we both wish you a very Merry Christmas.